I just want to make sure that I tap in as best I can to the audience. So thank you, first of all, for those of you who responded to the little survey that we set up earlier in the week. There were some nice little insights from that, which I'll share with you during the session. I'm particularly interested in facilitating the progress and learning for our technical experts out there, people that are particularly interested in becoming leaders, or those of you who are already leading at this moment in time. So technical experts are the ones I have currently been working with. So today's outline, we're going to have a little look, we're going to have a little look at what soft skills actually mean, what the benefits are of using them, how you can use them more effectively, and how, by developing your own personal soft skills, you can contribute to your workplace culture. We're going to look at why we perceive them as being difficult, maybe why we avoid them. Some of us definitely avoid them. I know I do avoid certain ones myself, and how we might be able to measure them, because a lot of people are now asking for evidence. How have you actually improved your skills in, say, listening, for example, or how have you improved skills in conflict resolution? So there are ways to measure your progress, and that will provide evidence when you come up against questions in interviews, for example. Now, throughout the webinar, there'll be little snippets that I'll throw in from the survey that you contributed to, as well as some evidence here and there from various sources that I've picked out that's sort of substitutes, if you like, some of the knowledge that I'm sharing with you today. All right, so let's define soft skills, my favorite photograph here. It's difficult to define because there are so many elements to it. If I got you to write a list right now, I'm sure it would be very, very long. But if we go to the dictionary definition, first of all, the simplest one I could find, personal qualities that enable you to communicate well with other people. If you think of it in terms of this, you're not going to go far wrong. So qualities and attributes that a person displays when interacting with others. Sometimes you might hear them being called interpersonal skills, employability skills, or enterprise skills. And actually, personally, soft skills is not my favorite, and I would go for one of the latter. But for today's purpose, I'm most likely going to refer to them as soft skills. The important thing to notice, or note here, I guess, is that the soft skills are transferable between industry and occupation. So if you develop your soft skills and all of a sudden down the track you find out that your role or your job is not as prevalent as it used to be, you can utilize those soft skills to help you transition into another role. They're also good for transitioning up in any organization. So becoming a good leader, for example, soft skills are inevitably very important, almost a priority, in fact. I'm not going to argue that one right now, but it's definitely up there on the list for me when we look at leadership skills. So if I take this, and forgive me for reading from my notes here, but if I take this quote directly from the Deloitte Access Economics Report, Soft Skills for Business Success, they report in a 2005 survey of over 450 business managers and executives from Western Sydney. They found that an overwhelming majority of businesses cite teamwork as 98%, time management as 97%, and communication skills, 95%, as being amongst the most vital skills for their applicants to have. So if you just have to go away today and you look at those three things alone, teamwork, time management, and communication skills, you're definitely on the right track. So recruiters ask for non-technical or non-vocational skills, particularly to draw from you your experience with soft skills. It's your opportunity to shine. So I actually see this as a real bonus, a real positive. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with soft skills, and some people are not, I'm just going to roll up a list here. Now, don't be frightened. Whilst the list seems long, it doesn't mean that we can't improve them. There are ways and means of improving all of these skills, and there are more than this. I will tell you now, this is not a definitive list. However, what I'd like to do, and I'm going to actually add to that list with a little quote here. We've got an entrepreneur, a best-selling author, and a speaker who I picked out because he highlights for me the best way to describe how we might avoid tackling some of these skills. So he says, along the way, we've confirmed that vocational skills can be taught. You're not born knowing engineering or copywriting or even graphic design. Therefore, there must be something we can teach. On the other hand, we let ourselves off the hook when it comes to decision-making, eager participation, dancing with fear, speaking with authority, working in teams, seeking the truth, speaking the truth, inspiring others, doing more than we're asked, caring, and being willing to change things. So there's a whole lot of other soft skills listed right there. He goes on to say, we call these skills soft, making it easy for us to move on to something seemingly more urgent. And there lies my argument, I guess, for why soft skills is not my favorite word or words to use to describe what we're trying to achieve here. Now, I've got a little question for you, and what I'm going to get you to do is to just pop a Y for yes if any of the following apply to you, if you've experienced any of the following things. So I'm going to describe a couple of situations for you. And the first one is, you've avoided certain discussions because you already know that things could turn ugly. In other words, maybe someone in the past has been confrontational. So I'm just going to have a quick look down here if anyone can respond to me. For those of you who can listen. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Here we go. Yes, we've definitely got a few. And what about this one? Here's the second one. Do you have you avoided someone in the workplace just because you didn't want to talk to them? Yeah. Oh, well done. Beautiful. We've got a mixture there, actually. We have got a mixture there. And the last one, have you avoided speaking up in meetings because it's a fear to make any mistakes, or to be misunderstood? A fear of speaking up in meetings. Yeah, we've had a few there too. Yeah. And it's no surprise to me to hear those responses. And I thank you for being totally honest. And that actually is one of the first steps to make, is to be honest, to acknowledge that these things are happening, not to blame anyone, but to be aware of them, just to take them on board. I particularly like how Godin describes the situation, or this last situation, as dancing with fear. And so I'm going to ask you today, are you willing and are you courageous enough to continuously learn to improve your soft skills? Because it is going to take a little bit of bravery to make some mistakes. If you make mistakes, that's fine. They're actually learnings. And the more you can learn, the better you will be. The trick is to learn fast. So paying attention to them is a good start. And I'll leave this slide with saying, if you are struggling to find or decide which soft skill you'd like to start to work on, my advice to you is to start with active listening, the second one down on the list there. The reason I'm asking you to look at listening skills first is because listening allows you to open up opportunities to apply other soft skills intuitively. So not only will you be improving one area, you'll probably be improving more than one at the same time. Okay, so let's see why we think, or why we feel or perceive that soft skills are difficult. And the first one, there are so many of them. You know, I just showed you a list, and I said it was not a comprehensive list by any stretch of the imagination. So it's a little bit daunting when we may start to acknowledge that we would like to improve these skills. The other thing to bear in mind is that it's like one size does not fit all. So you may use one technique with one person, and then you might apply that technique to another person, and all of a sudden it doesn't work anymore. There's a different reaction or action that you wasn't waiting or anticipating. The trick is here to have a desire to want to learn. It's like any other skill. If I said to you, okay, come on, let's go out and play tennis. Some of you would probably say, yeah, great. And the reason you'd say that would be, my guess would be because you've already practiced it. You've already had some experience. You might be really a mean tennis player and just want to, you know, give me a game that, well, you just might want to beat me. And so you're confident in your approach. Whereas for others who've never played tennis before, you might be more resistant to the idea. And it's purely because you haven't set your mind to, I would like to practice and develop and learn these skills. So being open to learn is going to be essential. And I said earlier that you need to be open to be making mistakes. If you don't put yourself in that position to make mistakes, then you're probably not going to learn as fast as you could. So I would like to give you some tips. Actually, just before I go on, can I ask the audience, those of you who can listen and hear, could you just tell me if I'm going too fast or too slow, or just right? So if it's just right, can we do a thumbs up maybe, or yes, just right, thank you. Anika, Anikit, and Kit. Just about right, beautiful. All right, so let's have a look then at seeing if I can improve the way that you can do your learning today. I'm going to get you started the minute that we finish this webinar. That's my main aim. First of all, I want you to say to yourself right now, I'm going to make soft skills a priority in my professional development learning. I'm going to add it to my repertoire. I'm going to make it part of my agenda. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to start with yourself and start to become aware. You take responsibility for your behaviors. Don't worry about anyone else at this stage. Just think about yourself and what you're doing. Learn to manage the behaviors rather than aggravate them. So to do this, the best way to do this is to observe. Start to observe what's happening, being more astute in listening, tuning in, seeing how other people react, and then ask yourself, how did I react? How did I react in that situation? If you just come from a meeting this morning, you can do this skill right now, in fact. You could just jot down, how did I react in that meeting this morning? Was I positive? Did I show any resistance to something you might be talking to? Was I open and honest? Was I keen? Just jot down, be aware of those things. The next thing to do is to look at and think about people that you aspire to. Look for the ones in your industry or in your profession that you look up to, people that are already employing some of these soft skills. I may have said earlier, they're easy to spot, they're difficult to actually perfect, but we can spot them very easily. So when you see a soft skill, one maybe that you've chosen to work on and someone else is employing it really well, take note of that. Maybe even go and introduce yourself, talk to that person, ask them how they've managed to improve that skill, engage in a conversation. Now, once you start to notice your own behaviors, you'll actually start to notice the behaviors of others more. Ask yourself these questions. Do you act in a positive way, or do you react and that can be negative in certain situations? Note which ones or which situations have the biggest impact on you. I sometimes refer to this with clients as what pushes your button, your behavior button. When somebody says something or does something, what is it that pushes that button, that shifts something in your mind that makes you react in a particular way? For those of you who have children, this is a perfect one to practice at home, because we know that children are very good at pressing our buttons, particularly at the wrong moment of the day when we're already busy or we're focused on things that we're having to get things ready for the family. So be aware of it. Just make note of when is your button pressed, what are the triggers that starts the behavior that you display. And ask yourself, are you actively listening? Are you wholeheartedly, totally in the moment listening to what the other person is saying? And you're not just listening for the words, you're actually listening for what they are saying and the understanding that you're gaining from that conversation. List out your strengths and weaknesses. The best way to do that is with someone else if you can, because often we are either in denial of our own weaknesses or we don't spot them. Some of you might have used a DISC profile in the past, which may highlight a few things that are soft skills specific, which are really good. When you have highlighted your strengths and weaknesses, you start to pick out the soft skills that you would like to work on. And I'm going to ask you to focus on the number of skills that you can manage the most effectively. So if only one skill is all you're able to manage right now, then just choose one, that's totally fine. If you think you can manage 2 or 3, then work with 2 or 3 simultaneously. Pick the ones that are of interest to you, that's going to be really important. And if you're really, really struggling, you've not done this before, pick something that you think will be the most easiest or the easiest to try first. Now I've put there, ask a trusted colleague to work with. Now, you really do need to be able to trust this person, so choose somebody wisely, someone you've perhaps known for a little while, somebody who has similar values to you, you've had conversations with them and you've just connected, it feels nice and natural. If you struggle to find somebody that you can work with, that's okay. You can do self-reflection as a starting point, and it's often the safest way to start this professional development journey. So again, that will require you to write things down, jot down some notes. Maybe when you get a little bit more confident, you can ask someone to film. If you're doing something in a team meeting, you might film yourself interacting. If that's too daunting, then you can move towards seeing if you can get someone else to help you. Choose a friend outside of work if need be, and just talk about your situation. That's a great starting point. When you pick somebody, choose somebody who can be critical but positive. So it's no good having someone that tells you you're doing great, everything's fine, it's all rosy. That's not going to progress you through your soft skill journey. So you want someone who's going to give you honest, open feedback, and make sure that in that process you are consistent in the feedback. So you're doing it often, you're designating specific time to work on these skills. All right, now then, let's have a little look just to remind ourselves at this point of some skills that we've already looked at. I'm just having a quick look through my list. Now you'll notice here that foundational literacies are linked. They're put on a cog, set of cogs here, and they're linked together. Now they're probably more related to what we would class as vocational skills. However, they are interdispersed here in this diagram, and I think it's a nice way to see them put all together. Let's just remind us of some of the soft skills here. This is Deloitte's Access Economics report again. And I think the good thing about this graphic is it enables you to pick out or do a quick self-assessment. So you might want to pick out 1 or 2 things on here, or go through them one at a time and say to yourself, how do I rate myself? If it's 1 to 10, where do I rate myself with each of these skills? And you just put a number by each one. That's nice and easy to do as a starting point. Now, the tricky part, measuring your progress. And so many people say to me, but Maria, how do you measure a soft skill? It's such a hard task to do. It's almost impossible. And I don't have time to do all this, analytic stuff. So it's not about analyzing everything. It's about making some key statements, defining exactly what it is you're trying to look at, first of all, that will help you choose a method. Now I've got 5 different methods up here that you can use. Some are easier than others, and I'm just going to give you a little roundup of each one to help you. So a marked radar, it's a little bit like a spider diagram. I'm sure most of you have seen them or used them, in fact, in your own work. So they're good for quick analysis because they're easy to compare, they're simple to create. You can put as many or as little elements around that graph as you like. And the nice thing is it gives you your current status really quickly. So you might do this weekly and just compare them over the next 4 or 5 weeks. So where did I sit with my listening skills? Where did I sit with my communication skills? Where did I sit with my conflict management and behavior management? And just pop those on your radar first. Do that for the next 4 weeks and see which one really stands out as the one that you think, actually, that's the one I really need to work on. Look how I did there, and that's how I've measured myself. And it is literally just your perception of how you've done. If you then want to move across and say, I'd like to do this with somebody else, you explain to them what your definition of each of those areas are first. It's really clear that you get that mapped out. I'll talk about that in a moment. If you use checklists, checklists are great because they can be very simple and they're really quick. It's like a tick and flick. Yeah. Did you do it or did you not do it? You could put it in a scale. I did it well. I did it moderately well. I didn't do it so well. I didn't do it at all. You can put that in your checklist. Very easy. You can also add comments to checklists, which I particularly like because you can note down situations or instances where that something may have happened that day that triggered your response. So how you've rated yourself on your checklist. If you put a little comment there, you can see over time, is there a pattern? Is it a situation that keeps reoccurring that you notice there's this particular skill that you're challenged with? If we go to rubrics, now a rubric is a grid where you have criteria marked against a level or a skill of attainment, or set of attainment, sorry. The problem with rubrics are they're quite difficult to start to set up. You have to put a lot of thought into how you place your criteria. However, once you've got the criteria there, they're super quick to fill in because you can just highlight the box. So if I want to improve one of my skills and this week I feel like I've met it at level 4, you just highlight level 4. And that descriptor in level 4 will tell you specifically what you're doing. So the key is to get the descriptors right, and that takes a little bit of practice. Could you just look me in? My battery's in there, it's saying it's a low battery. Must have been zapped. Sorry about that. Now, self-reflection. We talked about self-reflection earlier. Possibly one of my favorites. It's a great starter. Initial self-awareness straight up, and you can simply ask yourself a few key questions. It might be as simple as, did I actually practice that skill today? Did I mindfully practice that skill today? How did things turn out? What was the outcome? You need to be honest with yourself on self-reflection. That's the only tricky part. If you're not honest and you're, let's say, too kind to yourself, then you're not going to make progress. On the flip side of that, if you're too hard on yourself, you're going to think it's a never-ending process. You're never going to improve. So be realistic. Set yourself the task of being honest with yourself. Did it work? Did it not? How far? What was the level that you worked at? Etc. etc. Now then, partner interviews, the last one. We touched on this earlier, so I won't say much here. But you have to be prepared to open up to your partner and expose your weaknesses. And that can be a challenge for people in workplaces. So again, choose the right person, have a look and see who you might be able to work with. The beauty of working with somebody else and the aim to help somebody else is that you probably will start helping yourself. So don't be too afraid to try this one. If it seems a little bit daunting, maybe just try it with one person and just try one skill and just say, I'm just going to do this for the next 4 weeks. Do you mind giving me a little bit of your time? Let's talk about it at a brief meeting or at the end of a meeting just for 2 minutes each week. Do you mind giving me a little bit of your expertise. So in a nutshell, here's a nice little list for you of reasons or benefits for your career, the reasons why doing or spending time on your soft skills is going to help you. And I'd just like to share with you a couple of quotes here. And again, forgive me for reading straight from the notes. But soft skill intensive occupations will account for 2/3 of all jobs by 2030, compared to half of all jobs in 2000. And 10 of the 16 crucial proficiencies in the 21st century identified by the World Economic Forum are non-technical. 10 of the 16. And a little side note here, I thought I'd throw this one in just for fun, from the Washington Post, that says the seven top characteristics of success at Google are all soft skills. We can debate that one later if you like, but I think you get the idea. A lot of industries, a lot of organizations are rating soft skills to be very important in the future, in particular because of the way jobs are shifting and the way like we're being automated so quickly that certain roles will need to change. Soft skills will serve you well in that transition. I'll very quickly just touch on workplace culture, see how we're doing. Yeah. Now, for those of you who are already leaders or aspiring to lead, soft skills are critical. They're a must-have, can't get away with it, can't hide in the corner. And if you do, you will get found out eventually. It won't bode well. So if your intention is to work your way up the ladder, then my advice to you is to start looking at your soft skills capabilities, put some time and effort to deciding which ones you want to improve. Now, Simon, I've been very fortunate, I think. I've been very fortunate because all the workplaces that I have encountered in my time have been very positive. I've met some amazing people who have helped me to improve my soft skills. But I'm a little bit of a fan of Simon Sinek, and I would like to share this with you. I'm sure many of you have heard it already. Imagine a world in which the vast majority of us wake up inspired, feel that we're safe at work, and return home fulfilled at the end of the day. And I apologize, Simon, I don't say it as well as you do, but that's really truly how I feel. If I can help people to feel more confident with their soft skills so that they can go into work and they can make it a better place by communicating more effectively, by observing and being aware of their behaviors, then I think we're going to make our workplace is going to be a much better place to be. And let's face it, we spend so much time there that we really need to invest heavily on making sure that we create a great culture. If I share with you here the Australian Institute for Company Directors, through its research series, The Director's Playbook, The Future of Work, it states directors should also consider how their strategy will change in the future and how this will impact their needs. Some organizations, such as care-based businesses, may already have significant focus on soft skills. But for those whose focus has historically been more traditional and technical, may need to undergo an organizational transformation process in order to support greater emphasis on soft skills. And we know that the care industry is going to be quite a massive one in the future, mainly because obviously we have an aging population as we move forward, and I'm happy about that because yeah, when we get there, hopefully there'll be more services that will help us. But the soft skills are going to help, particularly in that field, but of course they're going to help across all fields. And so if your industry is based on a technical aspect, then it's time to start looking at how you can utilize other skills as well. Now, I'm just going to finish off with a few key messages. So here's the first set of messages for you. I want you to remember that they're transferable between industries and occupations. They're perceived as difficult because we don't practice them. We don't practice them often enough. And to improve your soft skills and as an individual, these are things I'd like you to try and do. Focusing your attention on what you can manage. Start with yourself. Don't blame anyone else. Think about what you're doing and see if you can change or influence other people so that behaviors change. Find measurement methods that work for you. And the key to success truly is frequent practice. And Kylie, you probably didn't mention at the beginning, but my background in education and working with children gave me daily practice in soft skills, and it's invaluable. And I actually say to those of you who have children, you're getting daily practice anyway. You're probably just not as mindful of it as you could be. So just be tuned in and start to teach your children those skills as well, because they're invaluable. So I'd like to finish, if I can, with this. For me, your professional development journey is like riding the escalators. Good communication takes time and practice and effort. This is no short journey. This is no quick fix. This is commitment to the stairs. So if anyone would like to try and climb the stairs, that would be fantastic. So Kylie, that's the end of my presentation. I do have the slides from the survey, but I think maybe we'll go to some questions.
Sure.
And then we can come back to the slides if we have time.
Does anyone have any questions that they want to put through now? There was one that came through, I think, earlier on that was from, I'll just go back up. It was, I can't get to who it was now. But basically it was, the question was, will soft skills help you get a job? Over to you.
Absolutely, absolutely, without a shadow of doubt. The first thing you have to do when you go, well, assuming you get an interview and you are being interviewed, you're going to have to interact with your panel, the interview panel. It's the first opportunity for you to demonstrate your skills. So I don't think we actually mentioned too heavily body language on there today. But body language is another one of those that you can practice. And people, you do it yourself. If you be observant today, the minute you step up from your desk, go and have a look at how people are actually physically standing and interacting when they're interacting with people. So that's the first thing. Yes, definitely. They're going to be looking at how your body language speaks who you are, what your values are. Verbally, your verbal communication through interview, through connections, even if it's networking, you may get a job through networking, which is actually very prevalent these days. I think it's something like 80% upwards of people will find a job through their network. So just how you connect with people when you're having conversations is really important. So be mindful of that too. The words that you use in verbal communication are critical. So you need to be very positive. Definitely no burning of bridges, no blagging of anyone else. They're things that I take for granted, but we do them and we do it without meaning to offend. So they need to be something that are very forefront in your mind. And if you are working with somebody who's got a different cultural background, there are other boundaries there that you need to be aware of. So learn about the people that you're working with, learn about their culture, learn about their background. And if you're not sure, ask them politely to explain to you, so what does this sound like to you? And am I being offensive? And if I am, I apologize, but I'd just like to check. So I think there are a few key points that are really important. Yes, it would definitely help you get a job.
Absolutely. And also, I think Maria touched on it earlier, was being able to demonstrate your soft skills. So obviously, by having good body language and the way you talk in an interview panel will demonstrate that, but also showing them any workshops you've done, say, for example, on listening skills or presentation skills, show them that you've done that and the things that you have done to implement it and keep that development going. That's highly valuable. We have another question here.
Yeah. This is a nice one from Ankit. I hope I've said that right. I apologize if I haven't. So one of the challenges to face in a new place, a new environment, yes, absolutely, is meeting new people. And how do you go about that? How do you overcome it? We talked about fear earlier, and for some people it really is overbearing. It's so difficult for them to go to a networking session, for example, or even in a new workplace to meet new people and start those conversations. There's no easy way around it. You do need to be brave. And remember, I asked you right at the beginning, are you prepared to be courageous in order to start your soft skills professional development journey? The first thing you can do is smile. It says it all here. If you're a happy approach when you meet somebody for the first time, you're going to put the other person at ease immediately. If you're looking very stern and very straight faced, they're going to think, what does this person want from me? But actually you don't particularly want anything other than to say hello and make a quick connection. So start with a smiley face, be happy, and introduce yourself, say who you are. You can share where you're from if you wish, as in organisation. You could even share your background, your cultural background, if it's an appropriate place to do so, and you feel comfortable doing that. And just share a little bit about what you do. You have to give in order to get back. I think that's the key here. You've got to be prepared to let a little bit out, first of all. So instigate those conversations. And if you're really struggling, the best one to do is to ask somebody how their day was. How did they go? Just civility. That's all it is. It's being civil to start those conversations. Did we get any more?
Are there any more questions? Stick my head in here.
Is there one sitting up here? Oh,
No.
No?
Right.
I'm just wondering if I could share. Yeah, I might just go back to this one actually. I tried to put down, maybe there might have been some questions based on working with a partner or trying to find somebody to work with. And I just jotted a few extras in. So when you're looking to work with somebody, it's really important that you don't force them to be your partner. So if I approached Kylie and I said, Kylie, I'm going to make you do this. I need somebody to do this with. You're it. Kylie might not want to do that, and it forces her, it puts her in a very difficult position. And if you've got resistance before you start, it's not going to help you on your journey. So make sure you pick somebody who's actually very keen. If there's two people working in the same team or industry or even workplace, and they have a connection already and they're comfortable with each other and they have that trust, it's brilliant. It's the perfect starting point. You do, however, even if you know somebody really, really well, you need to set rules and boundaries. So what are the limits within this relationship? Where are we going to go? What are our clear expectations of how we're going to measure my behavior or your behavior? And talking about measurement, pick the right measurement. Pick a measurement that is going to be valuable to both of you. It's no good you saying, oh, I want this one because it's really detailed and complex, if your partner is not prepared to put in the time that's required for something that's more complex. So agree on a measurement that you're both able to address, that you both be able to put the time to make the best or get the best out of it. And designate time somewhere, somehow. You can, in passing, you might have interaction throughout the day. There may be times where you can have a quick comment. So how are you going with that? That's fine. Or if you're keeping a little score in a tally by yourself and you're asking a partner to keep you accountable, if nothing else, they might say, well, what have you done this morning? Have you actually done that skill? Have you applied it? What happened? Which buttons got pressed this morning? That's always a nice one. Did anybody press that button, that trigger button? What was it? What was the reaction and why? Simon Sinek, again, I'm sorry to use him, but he does it so well. He says, trust must be established before anyone will take the decision to follow you. So if you haven't got trust, then it's going to be very difficult for you to make progress with somebody else. You can do it by yourself, but it's always better to do it with somebody else who can give you an outside view of what they can see, what's going on. Does that help? How are we doing for time?
I think if there's no more questions, we might just wrap it up a little early today. Again, thanks to Maria for coming in today. And again, please, SES are really committed to providing resources for our members to be able to improve their working life and personal life in lots of ways. So
do we want to share the surveys?
Oh yes, yeah. Okay, we can share the survey results. Actually, it's quite interesting, the results that came out of that.
Oh, no, we can't.
We need to go back down here. It has
Thank you. Here we go. All right, so just very quickly then to finish off, if you like. Obviously, a great deal was the first answer, and I'm very pleased to see that people are using this. It's going to help you advance your career for sure. That one was obvious. This one was interesting. The majority of people felt that collaborating with others and conflict resolution were your two skills that you felt you needed to develop or continually develop, becoming more aware of. But they were all fairly even across the board. So that tells me that people are automatically saying these are all important. Which one do I start with? So again, it can be very overwhelming. So decide to maybe only pick one or two to begin with, the ones that you think you can manage before you sort of jump into this, because it can go, you can go, oh my goodness, where do I start? It's all just too much. I'm very happy to see that over 70% of us are consciously practicing soft skills. And a lot of people did say to me that they're actually actively practicing them and being aware of them in their workplace. So awesome job, keep that going. Hopefully with the other little extra ways to measure it today that I've given you today, that will help you on that journey. The techniques that most of you use, again, here we go, active practice, and you're searching out webinars and seminars, which is great. Listening down the bottom, maybe this was perhaps not the most obvious, and it isn't actually the most obvious, but listening in and tuning into what other people are doing, it's coming back to that self-awareness and the self-reflection. So if anything, I encourage people to go to those two at the bottom of the list there, or the ones that were not as prevalent, and ask yourself, could I use that as another means to learn about soft skills? Can I start tuning in a little bit more? Maybe even going to people and asking them, hey, what, you know, you've got a really nice way of communicating. You're very calm, you're very clear. Can you give me some tips? So it's the easiest way to start your journey. So to estimate soft skills abilities to be of benefit to you. So the average was 57, but it did range. It ranged from 15 all the way through to 99. And I wasn't too surprised with this, except I guess I would say to those people who don't feel that they're using the abilities of soft skills very often in their daily routine, start using them a little bit more, I guess. You probably are, but you don't realize. So if you're somebody who's coding, for example, and you're sat at a computer all day, and you don't really interact with many people, that's fair enough. You're going to be in your little space there. But every time you get up from your desk and you go into the cafeteria, or you step out onto the street, or you go back home, you're still utilizing those skills. I know that's outside the workplace, but that's the place to learn them, to practice them. If you're somebody who doesn't get a great deal of interaction at the workplace, you never know when you might need to transition. And our last question, which ones were the most challenging? And you see how this aligns actually with the research that I brought up earlier. So communication skills, definitely top of the list. Conflict resolution, time management was another one in research that was quite high, and it's fluctuating here, it's more in the middle. However, you really did align with what I had found that was most prevalent. And these are the conversations I'm having with people, and they're saying, you know, communication, they just put that one together. It can mean a lot if we pull it apart as well, but it's definitely the one that people are finding, that's the one I want to attack first. All right, thank you. Great, thank you so much. I hope that was helpful to anyone. And please feel free if you would like to connect. The website was up there earlier, so I'm more than happy to field any other extra questions. You may have things after the webinar. That always happens to me. Yeah. I think 3 hours later, oh, I should have asked that.
Yeah, so feel free to send any questions through. Once again, thanks for coming. This will go up on YouTube, and I'll send you a link to it as I usually do post-event. So again, thanks for coming in today, everyone. Thanks, Maria, and everyone have a great rest of your day and enjoy the heat. Try to get into the pool with some aircon.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. All right. Once again, thank you
you
so much, and we'll see you for the next one. Bye-bye.